Hey there everyone, this is a continuation video for our Dolphin mechanical animal assembly, and what we're going to do is we're going to be adding another component into our assembly here. We've already got the stand that's already been modeled, so let's start taking a look at some other parts that make some movement here. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at what I would call, or what I've been calling, the axle washer, and we're going to be putting it in on this front face, and it goes in the bottom hole here on this assembly, on the stand and for the assembly. So I'm going to go ahead and start by creating a new sketch. I'm going to choose the face of the stand. So since that's going to be kind of where that's going to rest at, and I'm going to draw a circle. And when I put my cursor over the middle of this one, you're going to see like a small light blue kind of circle for the center point to line that up. And I'm going to start off with kind of creating the outer kind of edge there. So this is going to be 0.875. And I'm going to go ahead and finish the sketch, and I'm going to go ahead and extrude. So I'm going to extrude off of this face. The thickness of this is going to be 0.25, and the thing is that I want to go through and do is right now is it's going to show up as being blue because right now Fusion thinks that we want to join these things together, but actually I want to create a new component out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and select new component. You're going to see it's going to turn gray, which is kind of the default, and I'm going to go ahead and select OK. So now the other thing too is I did not necessarily get the full kind of extent of this. So what I might want to do is, if I take a look at my timeline, I want to right click on my feature and say edit. And so I did not quite get what I wanted, so I'm going to click that inside to fill that in as well. Sometimes that can be an issue as you go along in your modeling process. Okay, so now we end up having, a new body that is going to represent that axle washer. So then I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to actually toggle off the stand for right now, and I'm going to rotate this around and choose create sketch and choose the opposite face that would be going into the stand. So I'm going to develop that little shaft that is used. So the diameter on that's going to be 0.25. I'm going to finish the sketch. I'm going to extrude. I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to go ahead and put that out to be 0.75. This is going to be a join operation since I want that to all be part of that same component, and I can go ahead and say OK. And I'm going to go ahead and toggle the stand back on, so now we can see we've got an axle washer sticking through into where we can go through and use that. So I'm going to go ahead and go into modify physical material. Good news is a lot of our components, so here's our PLA plastic. I'm going to drop that on that particular part. The teal color doesn't really matter, so again, once we add our appearance in, we're going to go through and be able to override that teal. I'm going to drop a red on there, hit close. There's what our component looks like so far. So the other side of this in the drawing is going to be the crank, and so I'm going to go ahead and get it modeled first, and before we do any other parts. So we'll focus on the bottom here. I'm going to rotate this around. I'm going to create a new sketch, and on this face I'm going to kind of pull off of the end here, and I'm going to go ahead and click and set up my profile. Sometimes when you're looking at this, you're going to see there's a little bit of room between that shaft and the hole there, which is what we want. We want a pretty good amount of rotation to be able to be had there without any sort of friction between those two parts. If ever you get kind of confused by a lot of things, I would start hiding parts. So like here, I'm going to reference this component, which I can go ahead and rename. I'm going to call this the axle washer. So it's got kind of like a washer end, but then it's got like an axle, and it ties to the main crank of our assembly. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and create a center diameter circle. The hole that's supposed to be going through on the crank is going to have a diameter of 0.26. So I'm going to go ahead and set that in there, and then the rest of it, as I go to set this up, I'm going to go ahead and track off of the center, and I'm going to draw a circle kind of out like so. And then I can kind of zoom to get this placed. The dimension from the center of that to the center of this larger circle is going to be 0.45. Okay, so that's going to position this a little bit better. Our diameter of this outer crank is going to be 1.5. So that'll kind of help a little bit as well. So 1.5 inches for that. What we're going to end up having in this scenario is we're also going to have another kind of circle on the back side, which is going to be, and I'm going to use the same center point, and it's going to be 1.25. And we're going to kind of reuse some geometry here multiple times. From this face, I'm going to have another circle that's 0.25, and it's going to be, and some other things that might help are to vertically constrain the centers of these two circles, but also this circle to this one. So that way they're all there. Now the distance from this one to this one is the exact same. 0.45 is what it is for the other. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and select Finish Sketch. And just kind of put this into perspective here. I'm going to go ahead and hit Select Extrude. This component that we have going on, so the thickness of it, as we kind of take a look, the overall thickness of the part ends up being about 1.5. There's going to be a little bit of a lip edge that's going to be 1/8 of an inch, and we'll be able to pull in some of those other pieces. So actually I'm going to go ahead and grab the little lip edge here first, and what we're going to see in that particular assembly is that right off the end of this shaft, this is going to come out this way, negative 0.125. Okay, now the other portion of this as well is going to be this, and also this. So I'm going to fill all that in solid, except for where it's coming in and kind of fitting around the shaft there on our axle washer. I'm going to go ahead and say we want a new component, and I'm going to select OK. So that's going to get us most of what we're looking for, except for I want to go ahead and open up the sketches and turn this sketch back on. So here's what I'm going to take a look at. And when I do this, I can go ahead and select Extrude again. And the main thing is I want to grab this circle as well as this portion, and I'm going to extrude back. Now this thinks that it wants to cut, and I really don't want to cut as much as I want to add or join. So I'm going to change my operation, and you'll notice how it changes my look here a little bit. Okay, so from here to here, we're only going to go about 1/2 inch on our extrusion. So as we kind of go through and we take a look at that, because from the overall width is going to be 1.5, from the front face to the outside of the post is going to be 1, so we're probably looking at about 1 inch or 1/2 inch there. I'm going to say join, I'm going to select OK, and then same kind of thing here. I'm going to go ahead and select extrude. I'm going to grab this portion. This is going to be a join operation, and this is going to come out to be about a 1 inch extrusion. Okay, so here I can toggle off my sketch, and now I can go ahead and take a look at, here's my crank. Let me go ahead and toggle on my stand. Okay, it looks pretty good. So it's not interfering, and looks pretty good to be set up the way that we want it to be able to turn. So I'm gonna go ahead and change the physical material for this new component here that we have. We'll drop PLA plastic once our menu loads, and I'm going to change this over to a red appearance, so it'll automatically be in our design. So I can drop that in, and I can say close. So far, and now I can go ahead and change this to be the crank. Let me collapse the sketches. And for right now, we're going to stop. So that models 2 more parts into our assembly. Check out the next video. We'll model a couple more parts and get this thing moving.